Hi everyone, I'm here and I'm interviewing Gary Elliott in regards to all the Wheatsheaf information I've been sending out over the last few weeks. Gary is the gentleman who found the plot and is the investor on site. So I'm going to hand over so he can introduce himself in regards to this project.
Thank you, Sharon. As Sharon said, my name is Gary Elliott. I'm the owner of 3E Asset Management Limited, and I've partnered with another investor, and we bought the Wheatsheaf site just over 3 years ago now. So August 2017. So it's been a bit of a journey. We're now, coming back out the end of it, sort of thing. It's been an interesting 3 years and a very enlightening 3 years, shall we say.
So can you tell us how you came across the site and what interested you in the first place?
Well, I've known of the site for a few years because obviously I used to work for a company and they used to do training there. So I knew of it. And it just happened that I was driving past it one day. I'd seen it got for sale. I'd spoken to my sort of friend who invested on this. Would he be interested in the site? We ran some numbers. We were like, yeah, it looks good. We put an offer in. However, first time someone outbid us. So we missed out on it. But and this is the first lesson of any sort of thing is just because you miss out on something doesn't mean that you then just strike it off. Now, what happened was I think it was about 6 months later from that initial offer and being rejected, I was again driving past it, and there was a bald man hammering a board up for sale. So I basically pulled the car over, jumped out, just said to him, asked him what was going on. And he said, oh yeah, I've just been instructed to put a board up for sale. So literally rang the agent and said, I can just see a board's gone up on the Wheatsheaf. Can you tell me a bit more about it? What's happened? And it turns out that the person who outbid us basically, for whatever reason, couldn't raise the finance to complete the purchase. And the vendors had just got so, I think just lost patience with them that they decided to pull the plug on it and put it back up for sale. So don't ever, I suppose that's the first point is don't ever discount deals that you miss out on. Always revisit them, always check until it's completed. So it's completed, always check in with the agent, whether it's once a month, check online. If it's local to you, have a drive past. You never know. So
absolutely, and that's obviously not just for the larger sites, isn't it? That's something that definitely, if you're into property, that is the same stance no matter what you're looking at, whether it be land, rundown properties. That follow-up is so important sometimes, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly that, Sharon. You've got to have a pipeline. You've got to have some way of recording all the sites you've offered on, and just track them. So we used to use Excel, just an Excel spreadsheet. It's very simple. Build it yourself, and all you need to do is just record the property. When your first offer amount, the first day it went in, who you spoke to, and then just track it through until has the sale completed. And if it has, then you just take it off your list. But the amount of deals that you'll hear people say, oh, we first offered on it a year ago, 18 months ago, and it's the reason they then eventually got the deal was because they tracked it. And because if you're staying in regular contact with the agent that's selling it, if the sale does fall through, have a guess who they ring first. It's you, because you're the person that's actually been pestering them, asking them what's going on. So you've got to, that it's important that you track it. It's important that you you follow up, and even if you just take 1 day a month just to go through, ring all the agents about all the properties that you've got in your pipeline, how things going, how's this one going, is it looking like it's going to complete anytime soon, what's happening with the vendor, well, just reminding them, well, if it does fall out of bed, I'm still interested.
Yeah. Brilliant. So with the Wheatsheaf, obviously you found the plot, you put your offer in, you got your JV partner, and things kicked off. How did you come across your builders for that site?
Well, first of all, we, like anyone else, we put it out to tender. So I think we had our QS put it out to, I think, 4 building firms for tender. And obviously that was when I think the first issue came in, because the original, we bought it with planning for 8 units. Right. And that's what was put out for tender. And then when their prices came back in, we were like, ooh, this really is going to cost a lot more. And I think this was our naivety with it all, is, we'd put together a team of people who, QSs, planners, planning consultants, things like that. But because it was an old building, until the building firms went out and started, digging underneath the skin of the building, shall we say, that we started to realise that there was a lot of unknowns, and there was a lot of things that, just for, they were arguing, say they found out that some of the beams for some of them were rotten where it tied into the walls, which we couldn't see until we started putting holes in the ceiling, things like that. Yeah. So yeah, it was that, is this really going to work? So, we went back to the drawing board. We resubmitted a different planning application. Now, our first planning application was for 10 units. That was kicked straight into touch by the planning officers. I mean, within 24 hours, we had 26 objections. Wow. From the village. And again, a lesson learned is, you need to engage with all stakeholders. So parish council, locals, planning, officers, that kind of stuff. And again, we'd put together a team who were doing all this for us, because obviously myself and my other investor, we have other business interest. So, we weren't really as hands-on as we probably should have been at the early stages. We'd left it to the team we'd put together. But it became very apparent that they hadn't engaged probably as fully as they should have with the locals. And that's why we got the pushback. So again, another clear point, whenever you're doing something like this on a site of importance to the locals, you need to win hearts and minds. Special forces call it, whenever they go into somewhere, that it's called winning over hearts and minds. And it was that. And, we were a year into the project and we still hadn't got the revised planning. So what we did, me and the other investor, we basically took the stance that we needed to get more hands on. So we sort of rearranged the team, shall we say. We went, we sat down with some of the locals. We went to parish, and actually when we resubmitted the ideas for the site to them, they actually were like, yeah, that's how it should have always been. And they actually gave us a letter of support to put in with the planning application, which when it was all submitted to the case officer commented to our planning consultant, went, how have you turned this around? How have you gone from, 26 objections and everyone against you to literally the parish are now supporting you? And it was purely that we'd engaged with them. Yeah. We'd got their thoughts on what we were proposing. We'd asked for their input, that kind of stuff. And it worked wonders. So, at that point, we then went out to, and we were fortunate. We were going to retender, but we were then given, we were introduced to a set of builders who actually knew the property very well, because their guys had stayed there. When it had been closed down, they'd been renting it to let their guys stay there, because they brought guys in, so they knew the previous owner. So yeah, it worked out quite well actually, because they knew the intricacies of the building, because they'd lived in it for nearly a year.
So from your project, so it's been quite a few years, hasn't it? Is it nearly 3 years?
3 years.
Do you think that with everything that you've learned from that project, do you think you could have done it quicker, and how much more quickly you could have potentially have done that project?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking back now, I think we were naive to think we could do it in sort of 12 to 18 months. I mean, I'd never taken something through the full planning process. So again, this was all new to me. realistically, I think we could have done it in 2 years. If I'm being honest, I think we could have shaved a year off if we'd had a clear direction at the beginning. So literally, as soon as we bought it, we were clear, right, we're going to change the planning. We're going to go for 5 units, not 10. This is what it's going to look like. Getting a builder on side quicker, to get their thoughts of, right, this is what we're planning. They could peruse the site. We owned it, so they could have had a quick look round. We could have shortened that time frame. I mean, the actual build time for the project, and thinking that, they went on site back end of August last year, and literally we've taken a final handover of the last plot end of November. Now, originally they'd quoted a 12-month build program, but you think we've been in COVID since March, and although the guys were still on site throughout that period, the biggest challenge was obviously materials, plasterboard, plaster, and in our case, actually glass. We had to wait 10 weeks for the glass to be supplied for the window frames. Right. So, understanding that, if we could have done the whole planning process and all that, and that had taken 12 months, and then a build process of 12 months, start marketing them a little bit earlier. Again, we've been impacted by COVID of when would be a good time. The agents were like, because we were in and out of whether they could get people in and out the houses to view, all that kind of stuff. But we're me and my co-investor have said is, I think the key thing is making sure that you do more planning up front, and make sure that your decisions are made up front, because then that way you're not changing things throughout the process. Yeah. Because again, what we were doing, rightly or wrongly, was, you're going halfway through a building and then you realise actually that's not going to work. Right, so you have to put an amendment of drawings into the council, and that takes their process of 8 weeks or whatever it is, and then you've got to make sure that they're happy with it and that you're not upsetting anyone and all that kind of stuff. That it's not as simple as just going, yeah, that's not going to work, can we change that? It's like, right, yeah, we can change it, but now we have to amend the drawings, and that has to go. So it's understanding all the steps of the process and the amount of red tape that goes through the process. I think that's been the real eye-opener, is the amount of hoops you have to jump through just to get, something approved, is, it's been very eye-opening. And I can understand now why, I suppose in a way, why the big builders do what they do. They basically have, they take on a site, they've got 4 designs for that site, and they just don't change anything. It literally is, they're the houses we're building, that's the location, just crack on. They don't do amendments. So yeah, I think for ourselves, it's making sure we spend a bit more time up front, get clear on what we want, what the project is, what we want to achieve, the look we're going for, highlighting all the issues. What are the sticking points? What are the obstacles that we could face? Understanding, around parking, around space, wardrobes, all this kind of stuff that has since come out. And you're like, oh yeah, we should have done that. We didn't think of that at the time. But yeah, it's just taking that step back at the beginning, to spend a little more time with an architect, with an interior designer, with a planning consultant, and making sure that what you've got is pretty much 99% there. There's always going to be a small thing that will come up whilst you're building. Yeah. But make sure you have the bulk of it done, just to speed up the process and not delay it.
So what would you say is your biggest lesson learned, or the thing that's caused you the most problems on site?
Oh, that's easy. Collie Western slate. That's all I'm going to say.
I did think that one was coming.
Yeah, Collie Western roof slate. If I see another Collie Western slate. Basically, we knew when we bought the site that the main house, so the main pub, had a Collie Western roof. Yep. Conservation highlighted it. It had to remain in situ. We knew we had to repair it. So that was always factored into the budget. What they didn't make clear, and again, hindsight, neither did we, was that one of the barns on the site had a Collie Western roof. And again, it wasn't until our builders were at rip-out stage that it transpired that building control weren't happy with the condition of the roof and therefore wouldn't sign off any warranty for the roof.
Right.
Now, again, it was advised, you know, if you're going to sell a house, you need a full warranty, because people are going to be looking at it going, oh, what, the building's warranty, but the roof isn't. So, and again, so we spoke, you know, we didn't, again, we could have done different things, but, you know, we took the approach of being totally upfront and honest and transparent with planning. So we brought them to site and said, look, this has been highlighted as an issue. Obviously, there's Collie Western on there. What we'd like to do is strip that off, use it to patch the main roof, and then put an alternative material on there. And what we were suggesting was a heritage product, which was a Collie Western lookalike. And that's where our fun started. And basically 10 months of going backwards and forwards, you know, 1 minute them giving us a suggestion that, you know, we could use one material. Then it was like, no, we want Collie Western. Then we were like, we can't get enough supply of it. The fact that it's 4 times more expensive than any other material for roofing, and there's only one mine and there's only about 5 firms that can do it on that scale. And it was just, yeah, a consistent battle. And then, as I say, you know, in the end, I mean, in the end, we just took the view of, we managed to get supply, we put it on. They then started pushing back because we'd built a side extension that they wanted in another material than what, you know. And it's one thing from all of this taught me was, and again, plan is whenever you speak to planning officers, conservation officers, listed building officers, is whenever you have a meeting or anything, make sure it's recorded. Make sure it's recorded, in whether it's note taking and everyone supplied with minutes, or if you're on a Zoom call, which is how a lot of our meetings were held with them, you hit record and you record it, and you just give them all a copy. You tell them you record it and give them a copy, because and again, in our experience, certain things got said that then were either misconstrued or miscommunicated. We heard, you know, we believe they said one thing, they believe they'd said another, and as I say, it just dragged on for nearly 10 months, and it just cost us time, money. You know, the roof, in the end, we had to put a temporary material on that then got ripped off because we had to make the building watertight, you know. So yeah, Collie Western slate, if you're going to touch anything with that roof material, make sure you fully understand the cost involved and also the time frame, you know.
So with that, obviously, Collie Western, we work in the same office.
Yeah.
You know, we discuss the Wheatsheaf quite often, and you know, there's been a lot sort of gone on in regards to Collie Western. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, can you just sort of explain maybe what it looks like, what to look out for, how that is mined, or how we come across that? Because it's completely different, isn't it, to any normal sort of slate that you get in your house, isn't it?
I mean, basically, if you're sort of Midlands, East Midlands, I would say Lincolnshire, that sort of region, on a lot of older buildings, if it's a slate material on there, it will invariably be a Collie Western slate. And the way you can tell it, it's quite thick. It's a very thick slate. But also you'll know by just the number of, I can't think what they call it, number of courses it's laid, because I think it's 24. Right. It's 24 to 26. So straight away, you know, and it's not conformed. So normally if you've got like a Welsh slate, it literally is the same size slate all the way up. They don't temper it up. Whereas Collie Western, you'll see it gradually get smaller as it gets nearer to the ridge. Right. And you'll also notice as well, wherever there's a gully, there's no lead flashing on it. They actually, I don't know how they do it, but they actually shape the slate into the gully. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you can see why it costs as much as it does. I mean, the way they describe it is they say it's like building a stone wall on a roof. You know, it's not just laying slate. You know, they literally will pick a slate up and they look at it whether it will fit the space. They cut it, they trim it. I mean, it's craftsmanship. It really, really is at the highest level. So you can understand why it costs what it does. But even so, if you don't need to put it on, but the trouble is, because it's classed as a heritage product, and normally the buildings it's on are either listed or they, like ours was a non-designated heritage asset. Any conservation officer or listing officer will say it has to stay in situ. Yeah. So you're either patching it, which they don't like doing, and they normally will say they can't do, or it's a complete re-roof, which, to give you an idea, so on the main, so on plot, what we call plot 5, which was where we had to put the new roof, it was a new material, so it had to be mined and put on. It was it's what they call 10 square, so it was 100 square meters of roof. Now, if you're doing it normally in sort of, you know, Welsh slate, you're probably talking 15 grand supply and fit, somewhere around there. This costs 75 grand.
Double one. That's massive.
Yeah. So it's not even, you know, it was a huge price. And again, we just had it hadn't been factored into our budget. So, you know, and again, massive lesson learned is, you know, make sure that, you know what roof, what all the materials are that are on site, you know, and if you're, you know, and work in the factor of is, okay, will that need replacing, will that, and just factor it into both your purchase price for the site, but also your build budget. Yeah. You know, if it goes wrong, what's worst case scenario?
So at the moment, the Wheatsheaf is complete in regards to the plots, right? You've still got a little bit of work to do on, is it the new build out the back? Have you still got a couple of bits that the buyer wants you to do?
Yeah, so basically the actual build is finished. So main contractor handed over complete site to us sort of end of November, beginning of December. So the buyer of plot 1 has asked for a few additions. So they want a wood burner stove installed. They wanted some flooring extended. I'm actually back out there this morning because they want a water softener fitted to the unit. So that's plot 1. The buyer of the main house, so the Wheatsheaf, they just want some wood burning stoves put into the main fireplaces. So there's 3 existing fireplaces. We're not having to build them. So it's just installing the wood stoves. And then plot 4, which is sold with no additions. It's literally sold as seen. So yeah, and then it's just the plot 3 and plot 5. We think we're going to have to do some amendments on plot 3 upstairs because the feedback we're getting is, where am I putting my wardrobes? And again, because it's technically a 1.5 height house, so the bedrooms are all in what you call the eave space of the roof, and it's caused issues because you can't get a full height wardrobe against any of the walls. So again, a lesson learned is, you know, when the architect proposed the plans, and again, none of us, you know, I'm not an interior designer, you know, so it's looking at it, you know, an interior designer. And funny enough, my wife is an interior designer, but wasn't involved in this. She spotted it straight away. She was like, where are you putting your wardrobes?
Oh, the wife always knows best, Gary.
Yes, exactly. So again, we've gone back to the architect and we've proposed on the master bedroom to steal a bit of the adjoining bedroom and turn it into like a walk-in wardrobe.
Oh, nice.
So we're just, you know, we've not done the work. It's there as a proposal. Should someone buy and go, yeah, I want that done, we've already costed it. Nice. So yeah, that's really it, really.
So you've done some videos on the Wheatsheaf that you
Yes.
sent over to me. So you've obviously done some posting on that. They look amazing.
Thank you.
What's the best thing you've got out of this project?
For me personally, and I think I put it on one of the posts yesterday because somebody commented on it, and I just said, it's been a privilege to take an old building and literally give it another 200 years of life, because literally the roof will last 200 years. The building is stood, I think, parts of the building are from sort of the 17th, 18th century. But to know that we've put our mark on that building, we've put 3 years of blood, sweat and tears into it. And to know that, somebody's, future generations are going to enjoy it as a family home. And it's going to stand for another long past when I've gone. And it's just a sense of achievement that, we've designed it, we've brought it to fruition through all the challenges, but also as well is that, every time we drive past it, it's like, we did that. If that makes sense. And again, my daughter's 6 and, we drive past it every morning because of where she goes to school. And even she's like, Daddy, you built them. And I'm like, well, Daddy didn't actually with my own hands, but yeah, but she's even like, and for me, that's the thing is it's giving her the mindset now of early doors of this is what you can create. If, you take the opportunity and this is what you can create. So yeah, it's been a privilege. It's been, it's been tough at times, but it's also as well just the learning. The people I've met along the journey, good, as I call it, the good, the bad and the ugly. We've made some really good friends out of it. We've made some really good contacts and people we'll use again. We're already looking for our next project. And already, as I say, my co-investor, there is a development site actually in the adjoining village but it has Collie Western roof. So I've said, no, we're not touching it. And he's like, no, we can't, we know what we're doing this. I'm like, no, just stop. But, we've got a better handle now on what we're looking for, the costs involved, the process, the logical steps of planning, what needs to be done and in the order it needs to be done. And and I'm one of these people that, I learn by doing. And I think sometimes a lot of people sit on the fence and they're too scared to just go for it because they fear what could go wrong. But I find that's the best way to learn. And as long as you're resilient and you persevere, you will normally come out of it okay. As long as you've done the right thing at the beginning on your numbers. And if you're not sure, just get somebody to check over them, whether it be a QS, whether it be, a planning consultant or whatever, an architect. They'll roughly give you an idea of your costs involved. They have a lot of experience. And I'll be honest with you, our QS, when he came back on board, wasn't far off where this is coming in at.
Wow.
So again, use their knowledge and experience, but it is about build a solid team who are all going in the same direction. And again, you won't go far wrong.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to say on the project? Well,
I mean, look, if anyone wants, if they're local and they want to come and have a look around it, I've shown a few people around. I mean, as I say, we've got buyers, but obviously they're not going to be moving in till mid-January. So, if you want to come and see what we've done and actually have a look around, get in contact with either myself or Sharon. And look, I'm happy to take you around, show you what we've done. And let's build, I'm all about building relationships with people. So look, if if you want, if you want to run something past us both, look, feel free to get in contact. Happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Gary. And
You're welcome.
See you soon.
I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye now.